All the build-up ahead of this game against Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League. Obviously, there's a lot to get through. There's a lot that's happened in the last couple of weeks that kind of need to be spoken about, and hopefully we can kind of put those problems aside and get to the 3 points on the pitch tonight. Because obviously, a really disappointing start to this Champions League campaign so far, and this at home to what you would say are the worst team in the group. It's a good chance to get 3 points, get a good performance going, and hopefully get back into a bit of form and carry that into the league. I know obviously it'll be difficult to carry that on Sunday playing away to Liverpool, but this is kind of the stage of the season where we usually do get a bit of momentum going. Playing against Watford at the weekend, probably a good opportunity to get 3 points on the board. We didn't, but the Christmas period is usually a good one for us, so hopefully we can make that happen again this year. Now, welcome to Matthew Hogg, the Or Guardian, and Darren Cook. Welcome to the stream. Just before I get started as well, if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and click that notification bell so you get notified for all my videos and live streams as well. And if you are enjoying the stream, please give it a big thumbs up. There's just a few things to run through before we get into the main event tonight, I suppose. And to kind of start things off on a good note, the youth team had a really good win in the UEFA Youth League earlier today. As always, they were playing the same opponents as us, Red Star Belgrade. I believe it was at the Tottenham training ground. They actually beat them 9-2 in the UEFA Youth League a while ago, which is a really, really good result for them. Some good performances as well. Troy Parrott, who I know a few of us were kind of expecting or maybe hoping would be in this team tonight. He isn't. He played in that game a while ago. He scored 4 goals in that one, including a penalty. And other players like Kian Etete are signing from the summer, and Harvey White got in the score sheet as well. And I suppose a moment of note as well, Maurizio Pochettino's son, he came off the bench and got 2 assists laid on in that one. So look, it was a really good performance, really good result for them. Obviously 9-2, scoring I think 4 goals laid on. It was a really good performance for them, and hopefully we can see something similar in this game today. Kai Cal asking, do you think Vorm will start? I don't think so. I think we will see Gazaniga again, and Porav asking about the lineup, just not out just yet, but I'll be bringing it to you as soon as that does come out. The main kind of team news from this one is that Eriksen is back in contention. We heard as well from Pochettino yesterday that Giovanni Lo Celso and Ryan Sessegnon, they were both fit. We knew they were back in training last week, but Pochettino said one of them would be involved tonight, and from just the videos of the players arriving at the ground tonight, it does look like that will be Giovanni Lo Celso, which is a massive boost. He hasn't gotten many minutes under his belt just yet, but it'll be good to get him back in the team, and hopefully that'll be a bit of the kind of the boost that we need. Owen Evans in the bricklayers outside the ground. Peter Moyers, he's a Bournemouth fan, so make sure to abuse him. Welcome Matthew Hogg as well to the stream. So still no team news just yet, and I just wanted to say as well, I didn't have a Watford review at the weekend because I felt like it would just be another video saying all the same things that I've said over the last couple of weeks. It's nothing's changing really. It's just the same old thing from our games against Newcastle, Brighton. It's just really lacklustre performances from players who don't really look like they want to be at the club. And there's a few people saying before the stream as well, Dele Alli, he was back to, I wouldn't say back to his best, but he was showing a bit of that form that we did see from him in the past, getting to the level that he is at now, what we expect him to be at. But aside from that, it was just really disappointing. And playing at home to the team who are bottom of the table, I think at that before the game only had 3 points out of 8 games this season. It was a perfect game to kind of get back into our stride and pick up some points and kind of make a push towards that top 4. Because as bad as things have been, we're not too far behind. I know we're 3 points behind Arsenal at the moment. I think it's only an extra 1 point to those Champions League places. And there are teams up there that we know won't be there towards the end of the season. Should get the table up here. Leicester are in the top 4 at the moment. I think they're 3rd. And they may be in and around there at the end of the season, but you wouldn't imagine they would be as consistent as they have been so far throughout the duration of the season. Crystal Palace as well, a couple of points ahead of us. They probably won't be there either. Matthew Hogg saying, what's your predicted lineup? Well, I think it's going to be Paulo Gazaniga in goals, but aside from that, it's just so hard to predict what Pochettino's going to go with, because aside from the fact that his options have been varied a lot this season with injuries and a few suspensions here and there aren't really many players that have performed enough this season to say that they do deserve to start this game tonight. And again, with the formation changes that Pochettino does like to make, we played a 4-1-2-1-2, we played a 4-2-3-1, we played a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2 at the weekend, whatever it was. It's almost impossible to predict these lineups, but I think Lucas Moura has to start. He was given a chance at the weekend, but obviously it wasn't his best performance so far during his time at Tottenham. But only his third Premier League start of the season. It's going to be really difficult for him to get that kind of momentum going, and he does need a few more games. Maybe starting tonight, maybe starting at Liverpool at the weekend to hopefully get a bit of momentum going. Poor Ev saying Lo Celso will be our rock star today and a vital player for the rest of the season, and hopefully he will be. I mean, the team hasn't been announced yet. I imagine it'll be out in the next couple of minutes, but he certainly does have the potential to be a really important part of our team this season. I see Andy asking why I've got a big black part on my screen. That's usually where the live chat comes through in the video, but I'm not sure why it's not working tonight. I don't think there's anything I can do to take that off. The software that I'm using has been updated lately, and I'm not quite sure how to get that off, but hopefully the chat will start coming through in that eventually. And yeah, go back to the lineup. Players like Lamela, Son, they would deserve start tonight, but Pochettino, he likes to stick with the same old players, and I imagine we might see Christian Eriksen tonight. I don't think we'll see Lo Celso from the start. Just coming back from an injury, he hasn't even started any game for us before that injury. He didn't really have a pre-season. I don't think we'll see him from the start, but judging from Pochettino's comments in his press conference yesterday, I do think that we'll get to see him at some stage today. And I see Matthew Hogg there saying that the lineups are out. I'm just waiting here on the Spurs Twitter. I haven't got that through just yet. Hopefully it's good news with these lineups. Now the last thing they're saying is not long until team news. Have a look in the Champions League website and see what's coming up there. And look, as always, the team news is going to be a massive, really massive thing for us tonight, because Pochettino, again, as much as I love him and as much as I'll defend him, he does make some really baffling team decisions, and I feel like it has cost us in the past. I don't want to mention that Champions League final, because that's one of those where no matter what way he goes, if we lose the game, it's going to be criticised. If Kane had been chosen for that, it was going to be, why would you pick a player who's not fully fit? And I see Joshua Humphreys here saying Vorm. He's only joking. He said Vorm was starting. I was getting a bit worried there. It's certainly not a name I'd like to see in the team sheet tonight. Although I am happy we have got him back to the club. I wouldn't want to see him starting a Champions League game for us. Peter Myers, Vorm's no Ramsdale. Oh God, imagine being a Bournemouth fan. So the team news here out on the Champions League website is Gazzaniga starting in goals as we've expected. It is a back four, it looks like. No Toby Alderweireld in that starting 11. It's Serge Aurier playing on the right with Vertonghen and Sanchez in the middle, and then Ben Davies playing in left back, which is probably a bit of a surprise there. And it is going to be a 4-2-3-1, which is great news coming in there. It's Tanguy and Dembele and Moussa Sissoko playing in the middle of the park, and then Heung-min Son, Dele Alli, and there's one player missing there. Heung-min Son, Dele Alli and Eric Lamela playing behind Harry Kane. That's through on the Champions League official website. There's nothing from Tottenham just yet, but that's looking like the team that's going to be starting. Tarek saying Lucas, Eriksen, Winks, Lo Celso all on the bench, which I suppose would agree with this. So that's a really, really strong bench to have. I mean, you'd imagine in a game against a team like this, we're not going to need too much from the bench. But if we do need it, it's there. Some really good players that can change the game in different ways. Harry Winks coming on to shore things up. Lucas if we need a bit of pace, or Eriksen and Lo Celso if we need kind of a creative spark to unlock that Red Star Belgrade defence at some point. Now the Red Star team news, I'm sure we don't really know many players from their team, but I suppose quickly running through who the opponent is really, 'cause as I've said, we don't know much about them. They're a Serbian side. They've had a decent start to their group so far, obviously better than us. They're sitting second in the group. They lost their first game 3-0 to Bayern Munich, but last time out they came from a goal down to actually beat Olympiacos 3-1. That was a home game, but you know how much we struggled against Olympiacos, and Red Star in the end beat them comfortably by 2 goals. Milas Vulic, Nemanja Velunovic and Richmond Boyakie on the score sheet for them. And 2 of those players are starting tonight. It's Vulic and Milunovic starting. And no Boyakie in the squad at all, judging by this Champions League lineup announcement. There are 1 or 2 players that we would know from this team. Marco Marin, who previously played with Chelsea in the Premier League and was actually with Olympiacos up until a couple of years ago. He's with them at the moment. And Rajiv Van La Parra, who played with Wolves and Huddersfield more recently, in the ranks for them tonight. And both of them are actually starting this game. In terms of how Red Star are doing domestically, they're actually top of the Serbian league at the moment. They've played 11 games, won 10 of them, They only lost one game, which is against Partizan Belgrade, who are 5th in that league at the moment. Partizan, a Europa League team themselves, playing Manchester United on Thursday. But an exceptional start domestically for Red Star. They've scored, I think, 23 goals in 11 games, conceding just 9. It isn't the most competitive league in the world, but having that kind of record behind them going into this, and as well their last cup game, they actually won 8-0 in that one. So they're on a good run of form. They've won their last 4 league games, and as I said, beat Olympiacos 3-1 last time out in the Champions League. Matthew Hogg saying Austin is on the bench, so still no place in the team for Michel Vorm. The bench just coming through here in full is Brandon Austin, the young goalkeeper, Harry Winks, Eric Dyer, Giovanni Lo Celso, Juan Foyth, Christian Eriksen and Lucas Moura. So a really, really strong bench there. We surely have to have enough. We just have to have enough to beat this Red Star Belgrade team tonight. Just saying here on the Champions League website, we've actually beat Red Star in the 1972-73 UEFA Cup, and Red Star have never taken a point away from home in the Champions League, losing 4 of their games. The return fixtures in 2 weeks' time, on the 6th of November. Poor saying Aurier is a little lucky to start instead of Kyle Walker-Peters tonight, and I would agree with you. I've never understood Poch's love for Serge Aurier. I don't think he's a good player. All things considered, he's certainly not a consistent player. That red card he picked up against Southampton, that was kind of, for me, what sums him up as a player. He was decent for the bit of the game that he played. Really good going forward, a bit sloppy defensively, and then 2 really stupid challenges to get himself sent off, and it put us in a really bad position in that game. But thankfully we did get that one over the line. Got to 3 points in that, which is of course our last victory. Emily Cox saying, I see a red card for Aurier already. Aaron McDonough saying Foyth should have got right back, and it's a weird one with Juan Foyth as well. He was kind of the main one for Mauricio Pochettino coming into this season. He was someone that we kind of felt would be our starting right back. When the deals for Hiraki Sakai, Yusuf Atal and those kind of players did fall through, it was looking like Juan Foyth would be the best option for right back. But he picked up that injury in pre-season against Bayern Munich, and he has been back in full training for quite a while now, and he's had a few appearances on the bench, and even over the international break he played a full game for Argentina against Germany. But we're just not getting to see him in the Spurs team at the moment, and it's a confusing one. And as well, Kyle Walker-Peters not even in the squad. He's been in and out of the bench, hasn't made any first team appearances since the Newcastle game back in September, and of course he picked up that injury in that one. But some really strange decisions from Pochettino, and it's ones that, as I said, it gets really hard to predict what he's doing, but you often ask yourself why he is making these really weird decisions, because Juan Foyth, as I said, a really, really good player, one that was kind of the top of Pochettino's picks for right back. And we know Pochettino has kind of spoken to Foyth personally about making that transition from centre back to right back, and when Foyth has been there, for the most part he's done well. He's had some dodgy performances there, but anyone would when you're making a move like that. But you have to wonder what he needs to do really to get into the first team. Jonathan Black saying we have to win 100%, no excuses, play with whoever wants it. It's the most simple. That's a game like this. If you don't win, real questions are going to have to be asked. And I know I said that about the Watford game, and I do feel as though that is kind of true. The fact that we didn't win that game is really concerning, because Watford having an awful start to the season, and we know they had a small little boost when Quique Sanchez-Flores came back. They came from 2-0 down to draw with Arsenal, which, the way Arsenal were playing, was a really good result. But it's baffling how we can go from a team who last season, mainly towards the start of that season, was outplaying every single team that we came up against. I mean, we beat Chelsea 3-1 at Wembley, obviously a really good result. We had some good results against the teams in and around the top 6 as well. And now we're struggling to beat the team who are bottom of the table. And it's so hard to pinpoint the problem, because as much as you can say it's the manager's fault, and I know a lot of people do feel that, you can blame the manager for his team choices and for maybe not being able to motivate the team. But you also have to wonder why the players aren't self-motivated, because that's something that we've seen from them so much under Mauricio Pochettino. Every single one of them cared so much when they got on that pitch. Every single touch of the ball, that high press that we used to have that was so effective, it's all gone. And it's the same players that have been here all along. I mean, the only one we've really lost, only 2 I suppose, is Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier. The rest of them are the same players. Jan Vertonghen, who before this season said he does only have 1 year left in his contract, but for him, he doesn't need to sign a contract to show his devotion to the club, because he's 100% dedicated. And now you're looking, it's probably his worst year at Tottenham since Pochettino came in. Toby Alderweireld, we were thinking he would be leaving in the summer, but even then, we thought that last season, and he was really good for us last season, and he gave everything, and he showed that he cared. Christian Eriksen, I think at this stage, is just a lost cause. He's a good player, and on his day, he's probably one of the best in the Premier League, if not the world. But at the moment, he's just not having any good days. It's all lackluster, lazy performances, sloppy passes, free kicks hitting the wall, corners hitting the first man. He's not showing anything to suggest that he does still have any ounce of love for this club, which is really disappointing to see. But those are the type of players that you do need to move on. And Daniel Levy said in the annual general meeting, I think with the Tottenham Hotspur Trust a couple of weeks ago, he was saying that 90% of the players that he wanted to get out of the club this summer, he couldn't, because there was just no one interested in them. And you would imagine Christian Eriksen was one of those, Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen. And I don't think it was a case that teams weren't interested, but I think Daniel Levy was just pricing them out of it, because we know he does that. Joshua Humphrey saying, missing the transfer news. Well, hopefully there'll be some coming through soon. Honestly, we don't know what January is going to be like, because Pochettino has said, after the Brighton game, he said there are problems that will be addressed in January. Then he came out and said he's not going to make any signings or sell any players in January. And then after that, he was asked to clarify, and he said, it might happen, we don't know. So hopefully there will be a lot of transfer news in January. The players that I was kind of hoping would come through, like maybe Dybala or Fernandes, not looking likely at the moment. And I mean, it's no surprise, you wouldn't blame them for not wanting to join this club right now. We're in a very different position to what we were in the summer. Darren Cook saying, read on the BBC that Poch said Spurs are their own worst enemy. How can we change this? Because I really don't know anymore. I think that is the case, that we are our own worst enemy. But as much as it's, as I was saying, kind of a collective blame has to be put on the players and the manager and even the board as well. There's so many different individuals that they're not the club's worst enemy, they're their own worst enemy. Like Christian Eriksen, he wants to move away from the club. It's as simple as that. He wants to make a big step up. He said it himself, if he's going to leave Tottenham, it's going to be a step up, it's going to be going to a better team. But with the performances that he's putting in now with Tottenham, he's decent enough for Denmark, but at club level, with the performances he's putting in right now, I can't imagine there's any team that is a step up from Tottenham that would want to buy him. Like Real Madrid, they've obviously just getting James Rodriguez back from his loan spell at Bayern Munich, and they've players like Marco Asensio, Lucas Vazquez, Gareth Bale, who's become an important part of their team this season. Moving into the future with Dani Ceballos coming back from his loan spell with Arsenal, who's looking like a really good player who will get into that team. They're not gonna spend the money that's needed to get Christian Eriksen. It probably won't be in terms of a transfer fee, but the money that Christian Eriksen will demand, they've no reason to give him that money, because they don't need him when they have players who are simply better in their club at the moment. Juventus, they're absolutely spoiled for options in that area of the pitch at the moment. We have Paulo Dybala who can fit in there. The players like Cristiano Ronaldo, Federico Bernardeschi, his name's eluding me, but I think it's Mario Mandzukic. And what other teams really do you think have shown an interest in him? There was never anything mentioned from Barcelona. Bayern Munich, I think, was thrown around for a couple of days. I think when the other moves seemed unlikely, the press was looking for something. They said, yeah, Bayern Munich want him. I can't imagine they would. So for Christian Eriksen, he is definitely his own worst enemy. But you'd imagine that would have to change pretty soon, because he will want to force a move away. He'll want to attract interest from teams, and he needs to play well with us now to do that. So it could work out well for us in the end that he does want to move and that his performances will get better. But we need to see that pretty soon. Jonathan Black said, lose tonight and Sunday, then unfortunately Poch's time is up. Kills me saying it, love Poch, but it's a results-driven business. I wouldn't agree with you that Poch's time is up, but it is a results-driven business, and Pochettino said himself his job could be at risk if results don't turn around soon. And we know that relationship is still there between Levy and Poch, and it's not something that will be broken easily, but it needs to be fixed pretty soon. And we haven't seen anything to suggest that might happen, but things need to be addressed, and hopefully getting players like Lo Celso, Sessegnon back into the team, maybe giving Lucas Lamela some more starting time, Ali and Eriksen being forced back into form if they do want to play. Maybe that is what we need, but it's just too confusing right now. DJ Samuel saying Mark Travers should be a Spurs future goalkeeper one day. Aaron McDonough saying, if we start like we did against Bayern but put chances away, then manage the game, we should be okay. Jonathan Black adding there that we can't manage games though. And like that first half an hour against Bayern Munich was probably the best football we played all season. we created a lot of chances. Apart from the goal from Heung-min Son, he did have another couple of chances, and there was some really, really good football being played. But I think it's important to note as well that even though we did start that game really strongly, we were also really, really dodgy at the back before Bayern started hitting us with all these goals. In the first 2 or 3 minutes, I think, we were pressing high, we were playing football in Bayern's final third. But the first time they got possession like that, they were gone, and Serge Gnabry was in on goal, and Lloris managed to make the save in that moment. But as good as we played, we were so vulnerable at the back, and Bayern knew that from then, and they were able to capitalise on that in the second half. I don't know if it was a change in shape or what it was, but they were able to capitalise on that in the second half because they could see the defence that we were playing, even though it was our strongest defence and the defence that we've had for a number of seasons now, it just wasn't good enough. And players like Alderweireld and Vertonghen getting older now, they don't have the pace that they used to have. And with players like Kingsley Coman, Serge Gnabry, they could easily open us up. And they managed to do it a lot more successfully in the second half. Jay Spur is saying Aurier is only getting chosen because he's a natural right back. He's bad, but they're all pretty bad. And maybe that is the case with Serge Aurier, but Kyle Walker-Peters is also a natural right back, and he's not even getting in the squad at the moment. Jay Spur is saying should have played Toby over Jan or even Foyth. Matt, do you think Jan is on the decline? I think I'd say maybe he is getting to the stage where he's on the decline. It was really strange with him that he had this surge in his career kind of later than most players do. And I'm not exactly sure how old he is right now, but let's have a quick look here. He's 32 years of age. So yeah, he had that kind of surge a lot later in his career than most players do. Usually when they hit 25, 26, 27 is when they really start pushing on and getting to become, at the peak of their career, like, Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen will be, or should be at the moment. Jan had that kind of surge age 29 or 30. And maybe that's kind of more associated with goalkeepers having the better part of their career later on like that. But Vertonghen in the last couple of years has been absolutely sensational. And as much as when Toby Alderweireld first came into the team, he was kind of that one that kind of just got that defence together, and he was kind of the last part of it, kind of the way Virgil van Dijk was with Liverpool, but obviously not to the same degree. But when he came into that team, he was the man. He was the one that got everything together, and everyone was saying, Alderweireld is the best defender in the Premier League. He's the best defender at Tottenham. He's the reason that last year at White Hart Lane we only conceded 26 goals in 38 games. It was because of Toby Alderweireld. Then the next season, when there's all this doubt around his future, and he picked up an injury in the Champions League, I think it was against Monaco or something. Vertonghen stepped up, and ever since then, up until the last game of last season, he was an absolutely sensational player. And I don't know why he was so kind of underrated. There was some people obviously noticing the improvement in his performances, but he was without a doubt better than Toby Alderweireld last season, the season before. And that surge late in his career, I think because it happened so late, it was never going to last as long. And that's why this decline is starting to look a whole lot worse. If he had this kind of surge at age 28, 29, and he had 3 or 4 years of it and gradually gone down, no one would have said anything because that's the natural kind of progression of a career. But for Vertonghen, it's just really strange. It's happening, as I said, really late. But he is on the decline because he's getting to that age now, 32. He doesn't have the legs that he used to. He's obviously still has that, knowledge of the game, and that's something maybe that will improve. But, I think it was Michael Owen was doing an interview on the Late Late Show in Ireland a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of talking about this getting older throughout his career. And he was saying when he was younger, when he had the pace, he didn't have to think about anything, and he knew that whenever he got the ball, he knew what he was going to do. He knew just knock it past the defender and chase it past him. He never had to think about these small things. But when he got to that, when he started picking up the injuries that he had, and when he got obviously a bit older, he noticed himself having to think about every little thing he was doing in his game. And it killed him because he'd never had to do that before. He didn't have the ability to think on the spot like that. And maybe that's what's happening to Jan Vertonghen right now, because in the last couple of years he would have been able to keep up with these the majority of strikers in the Premier League. But now he kind of has to be preemptive because he can't chase players down. He can't run with them down the wing and keep up with them. And that's another area of why he is looking now as though he's just not good enough anymore. Emily Cox saying, if Spurs finish outside top 4, what should happen to Poch? I think no matter what happens this season, obviously within reason, Poch, he can't be sacked. Because you have to look at where we were when he came in and where we are now. We're a whole lot better now than what we were then. Even though we're going through this really tough run of form, we're so far ahead of where we were. I personally don't understand in any way the people who are calling for Mauricio Pochettino to be sacked or for him to walk. It really does confuse me, but I can understand the frustration and the anger. But he is the reason that we are in this situation where, you know, a couple of defeats in a row does make us angry. Like in the past, that would have been the norm for Tottenham. Maybe not to the extent of losing 7-2 to Bayern and 3-0 to Brighton. But these really bad runs of form would happen so often. We'd come to expect it, like in the games against the small teams. We wouldn't really expect to beat them. But we're at this stage now where even when we're playing the bigger teams, we do kind of expect to beat them. And Pochettino is the reason. And it's not like this came entirely as a surprise, because Pochettino said himself, the rebuild is going to be painful. And maybe it is a bit more painful than he was expecting. But he knew this was coming and he told us, and we're still, you know, blaming, saying it's his fault that he doesn't know what he's doing. He knew before anybody else that this was going to happen. And he said as well that, you know, that Champions League final closed off a 5-year chapter. And even though obviously he would have preferred to win that Champions League, close off that chapter, we're in a whole new situation now. We're in an entirely new 5-year project. And he said that he's going to be here for the next 5 years, provided the chairman wants him here. He's starting again. He's starting again from scratch. And if he's going to have the same effect on this team now over the next 5 years as he did on that team he came into over that 5 years, we're going to be a whole lot better in 5 years' time. We're not going to be reaching Champions League final and thinking, oh, that was great even though we lost. We're going to be winning Champions League finals. We're going to be winning Premier Leagues if he's given the time and if he's given the support, and from Daniel Levy if he's given the money. Because if he can achieve what he has achieved with, you know, a really, really tight budget, there's no doubt that he can go on and win everything that there is to win if he gets the financial backing from Daniel Levy. And we kind of saw this transfer window that maybe that is starting now, but Levy needs to keep it going, and we really, really need to just back this man, because he is an absolute genius and he could be better to our club than Bill Nicholson was. But we just need to support him, and we need to stop with these potch out comments, the potch out hashtags and whatever it is, and we need to support him. Amy P saying, how has Lamela performed this season? Does he have any future at Spurs? He started the season really well. He got a couple of goals, a couple of assists, obviously really influential in that draw away to City before everything kind of fell apart. He has that typical tenacious, you know, determined performances. He'll chase down every single ball. His end product, as I said, has kind of improved this season, but he's just not been given the game time from Pochettino at the moment. And I think he is a player who may suffer with this Pochettino rebuild. He may be shipped out pretty soon. But personally, I do think as though he is a good player, and in the way that we're going at the moment, he's the type of player that we do need in the team. He's similar to Lucas and Son. They'll chase down absolutely everything, and when the quality isn't there, that's what you need. Someone who will just give absolutely everything. Jonathan Black saying, what do you think about the rumours of some of the players fighting? Any truth to it? There's no truth to that at all. Christian Eriksen and Vertonghen both addressed that on Twitter. There's nothing at all there. We know Jan Vertonghen had the black eye, but that honestly just felt like, you know, a journalist saw him with a black eye and decided there was a chance for a story there. There's absolutely no truth to that at all. Again, from Christian Eriksen and Jan Vertonghen himself. Peter Moyers, no one has legs like Jim Lynch. Jonathan Black saying, something definitely isn't right in the dressing room. Unfortunately, does seem to be the case right now. I imagine it is those players that Levy was talking about who they were trying to get rid of in the summer. It's never going to go well if you let these people know you want to get rid of them and then they end up staying, especially when there is such a large volume of them. Eriksen, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, and judging from what happened on deadline day with Danny Rose, he's probably one of them as well. And I'm sure there's a number of others, because we sold 7 or 8 players, and Daniel Levy said 90% of the players he wanted to get rid of didn't go. I'm sure it's not the most accurate stat or number, but it kind of tells you just how much Pochettino was trying to clear out in the summer. Arthur Everett saying, I've been watching Spurs for 64 years and this is the worst that I've seen. Hope we make top 4. I think that would be a bit fair to say it's the worst Tottenham team in 64 years. Obviously, I know you probably have a better insight into that than I would, but there have been some really, really bad moments. I mean, we've been relegated a couple of times. That team under Gross in the early 2000s, Juan de Ramos even before Harry Redknapp came in. I wouldn't agree that this is the worst Tottenham team in 64 years, but it maybe feels like a much worse spell because of how good things have been in the last couple of years. And with every year since we've had Pochettino, there's been a progression every single season, from 5th to 4th to 3rd to 2nd. Falling back a bit after that season we finished 2nd, but this has been the first season where we've really jumped back, and you would imagine there will be a response to that. But I think it does feel a lot worse simply because of how good it was, last year, getting to that Champions League final. Jonathan Black saying, fingers crossed Lo Celso replaces Christian and we don't miss him too much. And it's starting to look more and more like that's what Lo Celso was brought in because of. He was brought in mind of Christian Eriksen leaving soon. And he is a very similar player, and I know I said this a lot in my transfer talk videos over the summer. He may have been brought in to play kind of with Christian Eriksen to create a bit of competition, but if Eriksen did leave, he was the perfect replacement because they're very similar players. And Lo Celso has a lot of the qualities that Christian Eriksen has, maybe not to the same level, but he has all the similar attributes that Eriksen has. But he's a bit quicker, he's a bit more pace, and you'd imagine coming into a new team, he will have a bit more desire. We were hoping it wouldn't be the case that he'd be there to replace Christian Eriksen, but now that it looks like he will be, it's not the worst thing in the world. Tarek saying Poch deserved to be backed in the transfer window a long time ago, and that did not happen. So Levy is the reason we are in this situation, only him. It felt like it came a bit late, this backing of Pochettino in the transfer window, but I kind of said it in one of my videos a couple of weeks ago. 2 years ago, the argument with Tottenham going into the transfer window was that we weren't going to sign any players, because looking at that team we had, our 11 was picked every single week. You knew what 11 was going to be unless there was an injury or a suspension, and even in that instance you kind of knew what player would be stepping in. But everyone was saying Spurs wouldn't sign any players because there's no player that will join this club knowing they're going to be in the starting 11, because they wouldn't be, because it was always going to be a case of being a backup for Harry Kane or Christian Eriksen or Moussa Dembele. No one wanted to join because they wouldn't get into the team. But looking at this team now, there's no player in our regular starting 11 that you can say their position is safe if we do go into the transfer window with a big war chest and spend a whole lot of money. Not one of those players is safe in that team, and that's been the biggest change for me. And obviously it's really, really worrying, but Poch does need to be backed in the window now, because there will be a lot of changes made over the next couple of years. A lot of changes. Our team is going to look completely different in 2 years' time to what it looks like now. Maybe even to the extent of what we've seen from when Pochettino came in to now. I mean, that team he started his first game with players like Yunus Kaboul, Kyle Naughton, players that we even forgot existed starting in that game. It could be a very similar change over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Matthew Hogg saying finally a French midfield, with of course Ndombele and Sissoko starting together tonight. Harry Winks on the bench. And I think this is the first, maybe second time that we've seen the two of them together without Harry Winks. But hopefully we can see some good stuff out of them tonight. It's obviously not the most difficult game in the world for them to kind of have an impact, but hopefully they do play well. Jay Spurs saying Lo Celso carries the ball more and dribbles more, which I suppose is good. Christian Eriksen has the kind of laid back, might even say lazy style of play. Lo Celso isn't really like that. And the good thing about Lo Celso is, we've seen a bit during Pochettino's time, players like Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen having to drop into the deeper roles if we are going to bring on some players like Lamela or Son. But that is something that Lo Celso has done before. It's not going to be a new thing to him with PSG. Even though it is one of the reasons that he did leave there, playing in that more defensive midfield role, he is able to play there. So if it's needed, he can be put there, and he'll know what he's doing. Peter Myers saying thoughts on signing Andy Cusack as a keeper coach. Hard pass on that one. Jay Spurs saying Eriksen rarely runs with the ball. That's why Lo Celso can give us a different dimension to the attack. And again, in my transfer talk videos, that was something that I was really looking at, and I was really excited to see. Bringing in a player like Tanguy Ndombele, who is known for making that transition from defence to attack, he can dribble with the ball or he can pass the ball. He'll just break up play and completely change the game. He'll completely, do that transition himself. And then a player like Giovanni Lo Celso coming in a more advanced role, who can run with the ball, is a bit quicker than what we have in that area already. And then Ryan Sessegnon, typically a left back, but someone you kind of feel has been brought in by Pochettino to play in a more attacking role. It's like we were trying to add that a lot more pace to our team, and to, I wouldn't say utilise a counter-attacking style of play, but to give us different options, because we have the quality to play attacking football and keep a team pinned back in their final third. But with players like Eriksen, Ali, Harry Kane, you're kind of lacking that pace to make the transition. But it's like Pochettino was looking for those one or two players who could play both sides of that, where they can keep an attack maintained, but they can also run from defence to attack like that and get a game changed. Fortunately, we haven't had either of those aspects of our game this season. The high press is gone, the good possession football in around the attacking third is gone, the counter attacking is gone, any sense of sort of shape in midfield is gone. It just hasn't really gone to plan. And as much as you can blame Daniel Levy for not investing the money earlier, Pochettino has said it even himself that he's not going to buy a player for the sake of buying a player, and he wants to find that exact perfect player to get into his team. and even though he did identify them as Ndombele and Lo Celso, maybe a bit earlier we needed to just get someone in, to add a sense of freshness to the team, add a new face, have that that new signing boost, and maybe that kind of delay in him being able to find those couple of players is part of the reason that we're kind of struggling now at the moment. But we got the players in now and we're not pushing on, so just everything about our season this year is just opening up a whole load of questions, and they're really, really difficult to answer. Jonathan Black saying, aside from the poor form, there isn't any excuses that we aren't running or working hard as much as we have in previous years. We used to be one of the best pressing teams and one of the most fit as well. And that's been probably the biggest change in our play this season, to be honest. The high press has been completely non-existent. There's a stat that came out, I think, before the Brighton game that showed the level of kind of effectiveness of a team's high press in the Premier League this season, and it was really, really specifically defined as the defensive team, I think, passing the ball 3 or more times in their own defensive third, and then our high press dispossessing them, something really specific like that. But Tottenham, I think, were bottom of that list. As a team who were renowned for that high press when Pochettino first came in our good few seasons, it was just completely gone. And that, as much as you can say it's the same players in the team, why aren't they doing what they've been doing all along? That's kind of the reason that it happened, because that team was one of Poch's kind of best team, was one of the youngest the Premier League had ever seen, and that's why it was working, because you had that the fresh legs, the young, exciting prospects in the team, and you also had a really good balance of experience as well, with players like Jan Vertonghen, Hugo Lloris in goal. But right now, all these young players are getting to that level where they're the experienced players now, and because we haven't signed any players, our team has just been getting older every single year by a year. It's not been going up by 3 months because of 1 or 2 signings bringing it down. It's been just going up with the years because we're not adding anything new to the team. And people were surprised when that thing came out that Tottenham have, I think, the 16th oldest team the 4th oldest, 16th youngest team in the league this season. But it's because nothing has been added. People get older every year, and when it's going to be the same people in that team, the team's going to get older by a year every year. And I wouldn't say I was surprised when I saw it, but it was something that I suppose I knew, but had never really realised because it hadn't been addressed as much. Because when Pochettino's team was young, that was all anyone ever spoke about. But as that stopped kind of being relevant, it was just completely thrown to the wayside. No one was thinking about it. And now all of a sudden it's really been driven home that we have an old team. And the high press just isn't going to be as utilised as much as it was in those previous years. Colby asking, do you think we will sign anyone in January? Yusuf Atal, maybe. We need defensive reinforcements badly. I don't know. You'd imagine that we would, and we should, and we kind of need to. But, as some people are saying here, answering Tarek's question as well, Pochettino has been so kind of contradictory with himself when answering these questions about signing players in January. I mean, he's always been a bit kind of strange answering transfer questions. He always contradicts himself. He always, has these really, really weird press conferences where he says some really questionable things, and then he'll come out in the next press conference and he'll be asked about it and he'll laugh it off and say, oh no, I love this club, I'll stay here forever. He does these really weird things in press conferences, and in the last couple of weeks he said there are problems that will be addressed in January. Then he said, absolutely no way are we signing or selling players in January, to now, well, it's a possibility. So nobody knows. And it's, as a fan, obviously that's really, really frustrating to have to listen to so often. We had that Champions League thing last year when he said, if we win the Champions League, I'll leave. And then, oh no, I'm going to stay here for 5 years. It's incredibly frustrating. And it's hard to kind of predict where we're going to be in 12, 18, 24 months because we don't know who's going to be in charge because he's not telling us definitively whether he is or not. And I know personally, I like to focus on the kind of more definitive comments rather than the really mysterious ones that he makes, like, oh well, who knows who's going to be where in what time. I love the club now, but I could wake up in the morning and want to change the scenery. But then I kind of prefer to focus more on the comments where he says, I will be here in 5 years, because it's more definitive, it's more kind of final. But it's just hard to believe anything he says at the moment because he answers questions in riddles, and it can be a good tactic in terms of putting off opponents and stuff like that. But I think there does need to be a degree of openness with the fans, especially in a situation like this when things are going so wrong. The fans kind of deserve to know how it's going to be fixed, how it's going to be addressed. If we're going to sign players, just say, yeah, we're looking to sign players. If we're not, say we're not. But don't come out every week and say something different. I know there does have to be at the end of the day, it is a business. And you need to keep your cards close to your chest. But the fans are the ones funding that business a whole lot. Buying their tickets, buying their merchandise, whatever it is. The fans are funding that club a lot, and we do deserve to know to some extent what is going to happen. If we are going to sign players or not. I don't want to know the exact player that we're going to sign. I don't want a receipt for it saying just how much he was signed for. But I do think there needs to be a degree of openness, and Pochettino needs to decide. All right, am I going to tell him? Am I going to tell him if we're going to sign players or not? And if you're not, just don't answer the questions. But don't say we will, we won't, we will, we won't, because that is more frustrating than being told, oh, I'm not telling you. Matt in Full Vision saying we need to turn it around. Hopefully that starts tonight. Kyle King saying we won't sign much in January. Matthew Hogg, this game will be Lamella's 200th appearance. Jonathan Black saying, I heard that we are looking at asking for Isco for Ericsson in January. How great would that be? He's a great player and would take us up a level 100%. That would be amazing. I mean, it would be great for us to get a replacement in for Christian Eriksen in that same deal, because we know we're not going to get a good transfer fee for him, because he does only have 6 months left in his contract. He will have that long left at that time. Isco's a great player, someone we've been interested in the past, and someone I would have liked to have seen at the club maybe a bit sooner. But he's a quality footballer, and he's shown that, being in this Real Madrid team for so long, in the team that won 3-4 Champions League finals in a short space of time, he's a fantastic footballer, and he would be a great replacement for Christian Eriksen. Also, in the fact that he is a really, really similar player. DJ Samuel asking, will Spurs sign Dybala in January? Personally, I don't think he will. I don't think we will sign him, because we were close to getting him on deadline day, but I'm sure he's been keeping an eye on what's been happening this season, and he won't be impressed at all. And he's getting a bit of game time with Juventus now, a bit more than kind of would have been expected when Maurizio Sarri tried to force him out of the club in the summer. But yeah, I don't think Dybala will be happening, unfortunately. I think we've missed our chance with that one, and maybe Levy is to blame for that. Matt in Full Vision saying Poch isn't really in charge of transfers. He wanted to be, but Levy wouldn't budge on that. And that's not fair to criticise Poch about signings. He already told us he's not involved. I'm not criticising him about signings, and I know Matt, he's not really in charge of transfers, but I'm not criticising him about them. I'm just saying, don't tell us that he's going to sign a player and that he's not going to sign a player and that he is going to sign a player. It's not the behind the scenes bit that I'm upset about, that I'm frustrated with. It's that he's given us mixed messages and he's contradicting himself in all these press conferences. And that's the last thing the fans need, to be honest, because we always know, being Tottenham fans, the transfer window isn't going to be the most enjoyable part of the year. It's always going to be a sore subject with us, because we sell our best players and we don't replace them kind of historically. But I just don't want him coming out in these press conferences, and it's like he almost decides, I'm going to throw a curveball today, what's it going to be? But then I'm going to say something completely different next week. Because, as I said, as much as I know it is a business and you need to kind of throw off your opposition even as much as possible, he also needs to not mess with his fans, because that's what he's doing. It's the fans who listen to those press conferences who want this information about the club. I just don't think it's right for him to be saying all these things that he knows himself just aren't true. Because if he's saying, these problems will definitely be addressed in January, and then saying, oh no, we're not going to sign anyone, he obviously doesn't know enough about it to comment on it. So say that in the press conferences, as he did over the summer. He said, I'm not in charge of transfers, I can't answer that. Say that. Don't be giving us all these mixed messages. It's just not the thing that we need. Another thing about Pochettino, and again, I'm not Poch out. I love the man. I completely admire and appreciate what he's done for the club. But the comment he made after the game on Saturday, when he was talking about the fans not getting behind the team, and it's down to the fans to spur the team on, I didn't really like that comment, because the fans haven't been great at games in the last couple of years. Making that move to Wembley was obviously, it kind of killed the excitement of match day and stuff like that. When you're playing in a half full stadium, because we're not allowed to use the upper tier and stuff like that. The fans at White Hart Lane were, without a shadow of a doubt, the best in England, maybe even the best in Europe. The atmosphere was always exceptional, and it really were like the 12th man for that team and stuff. But there's nothing to get the fans excited right now. I mean, as much as we need to get behind the team need to give us something to be excited about. And when they're going out in the pitch playing like they just don't care, it's another day at work for them. There's no desire, there's no drive, there's no they don't really appreciate the position that they're in, I suppose. It's really hard for the fans to get behind that and to chant from first minute to last. I know all these rules in the stadium, people getting told to sit down just because they're standing up, and it's a fully seated stadium. I think the fans at the moment can't be blamed for anything that's going on. Matthew Hogg saying, I think this is all Levy's fault. I wouldn't say it's all Levy's fault, but at the end of the day, he's the man running the club. He has to be blamed to some extent. Matt in Full Vision saying, well, he's not going to sign anyone, Levy might. Journalists need to stop asking him about signings when they know that he's not involved with transfers. And I would agree, obviously they know that, they should probably stop asking him, but they're not going to get their stories if they stop asking him. They're not going to get their little 30-second clip of Pochettino giving out or of these things of him contradicting himself all the time. They're not going to get what they want if they don't ask him those questions, and it's because they know they'll get a reaction and they know they'll get a newsworthy answer. They're going to keep asking those questions. Yes, I'm live. So who will Levy replace Poch with? It has to be someone who won't want any signings, and that's the thing. I was watching the kickoff show on Sunday for the United and Liverpool game, the True Geordie, and they were talking about this, and they were saying it's kind of similar to the situation that United and Arsenal were in when they lost Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger respectively. They're kind of, with Arsenal more so, I'd say, they were kind of holding on to Arsene Wenger because they didn't know where they would go next. For Tottenham, there's no one that you can say is a step up from Mauricio Pochettino. He's been one of the best managers in the world over the last 5 years with almost no money. So you have to acknowledge the fact that, even if you are kind of falling out of love with Pochettino and you're thinking maybe he should go, there's nowhere to go from here that's better than where we're at right now. I mean, they made the point as well with Sir Alex Ferguson that when he announced his retirement, they were all of a sudden caught in a position where they hadn't a clue what to do next, and they ended up kind of rushing into a decision to appoint David Moyes, which obviously turned out to be, an absolutely ridiculous decision. But there's no one now that you can replace Pochettino with. There are people like Eddie Howe, Eric Ten Hag, Nuno Espirito Santo, or that Leipzig manager, I can never think of his name. I'll have a quick look here. Julian Nagelsmann. They're all exciting managers who play the kind of football that we like to play and who haven't been blessed with the biggest transfer budgets ever. And they've done well with their teams. But Pochettino, what he has at the club right now, the relationship with the board, the relationship with Levy, the relationship with a lot of the players as well, it's just going to completely have to be restarted. It's going to go right back to square one if we do get another player in. And we could end up going backwards. We could end up back where we were, kind of happy to be a Europa League team. Spurs fan Todd, there's the black square. I'm not sure that's usually where the live chat comes through on the video screen. For some reason, it's not working tonight. As I said, the software that I'm using, it's been updated lately, and I'm not really sure why the chat isn't coming through there. But I don't know how to get rid of the black square either. Matt in Full Vision saying they can ask him about things he knows, like his tactics or team selections. The idiot journalists in this country are half the problem. And again, they can, and it would probably be more interesting for us as fans if they did ask him about those kind of more detailed, more football related stuff. But at the end of the day, the journalist's job isn't to get the kind of behind the scenes stuff on Tottenham. It's to get something that will get their story put on the news. And Pochettino getting really angry at them, or making comments saying that he's not in charge of Tottenham, the transfers at Tottenham, that gives them their story. Pochettino isn't happy, and that will get in the news, and that will get clicks, that will get reads, that will get views, whatever it is. Their job, journalists, as much as we think that a journalist's job is to tell the story and to let the public know what's going on, it's not. Their job is it's almost clickbait. Their job is to get as many people reading or watching or listening as possible, and Mauricio Pochettino kind of explaining in depth why he's going with a 4-3-1-2 isn't going to attract as many clicks as here's Pochettino shouting at a journalist, he must be leaving soon, who's going to replace him, he's after United, Eriksen and Kane are going to follow, because that's what will get more clicks. So the journalists probably are the problem, but at the end of the day, they're just doing their job. I won't be watching the match live on this. I'll be watching it myself, but I'll be ending the stream before the game starts. Jay Spur is saying, do you think we move the ball faster with Lamela and Ndombele on the field? I think that's kind of hard to judge because everything has been different this season. Everything has been slower. It's been, just really lackluster in possession and stuff like that. So I think it is kind of hard to judge with Ndombele. In terms of Lamela, I think sometimes he does take a bit too much out of the ball. Like he'll, take 5, 6, 7, 8 touches and he won't really go anywhere, or he will try and take on 1 or 2 players and he will lose the ball. So it is kind of hard to judge the Ndombele side of things because things have been so different this year anyway. Forget top managers at Spurs, they won't work under Levy, so we have to go for mid-table managers. That's where we are after being in a CL final. We don't have to go for mid-table managers because we have a top manager right now who wants to stay at the club and who deserves to stay at the club and who I absolutely hope does stay at the club. We don't have to go for mid-table managers because we don't need a manager. But if we do lose him, you could probably call Eddie Howe and Espirito Santo mid-table managers, but at the end of the day, that's what Pochettino was when he was appointed. And I do acknowledge that Daniel Levy had a massive amount of luck with that appointment. You know, he couldn't possibly have expected things to go the way they did when he appointed Pochettino, because even Pochettino said himself he was surprised. He had never thought in a million years at the end of his first 5-year project at the club would be a Champions League final. So, you know, even if it is going for mid-table managers, it's a mid-table manager who got us to where we are right now. So that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I think bringing someone in from somewhere else, like Eric Ten Hag from Holland or Julian Nagelsmann from Germany, may be better than just bringing someone up from Bournemouth or Wolves. Matthew Hogg saying, I miss the old Tottenham. We all do at this stage, really. You know, hopefully they'll be back soon, but this is a good chance for us to get that. And before I take a few more questions, I just want to say, if you are enjoying the stream, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, I do these interactive live streams. I do match previews, reviews, and breaking news videos. So please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Arthur Everett saying, do you think that if we lose the next 2 games, that Poch will be sacked? No, I don't think Poch will be sacked. And if he is, there's going to be... Daniel Levy will be forced out of the club if he does sack Pochettino. Because as much as people are saying, you know, Poch out, Poch needs to go and stuff like that, I think there's some people who are only saying it because they feel safe that no matter what they say, Pochettino won't be going. Because, you know, I've seen polls on Twitter where 60-70% of people have been voting for Poch out instead of Poch in. But I really don't think there's that many fans who actually want him gone. You know, as Matt in Full Vision says, we have a top manager but a bad owner. Levy needs to go. I think Levy would be it would be better for Levy to go before Mauricio Pochettino does. But I'm not Levy out either. I just think if one of them was to go, it would be better for it to be Daniel Levy. Jay Spurs saying it's the year 2050. We've still not bought a backup striker for Kane. It's just so hard to find one because any striker we do sign knows they will be a backup striker to Kane. And Fernando Llorente was the best one that we got in that position, and then we let him go for free, which I still don't understand. He's doing really well for Napoli over in Italy. Obviously got that goal against Liverpool in the Champions League, but you know, maybe someone like Troy Parrott is going to have to be what we'll have to kind of accept as the backup for Kane, because we're never going to be able to sign a player. You know, if you look at the strikers like, you know, Callum Wilson, who's been attracting a lot of attention from the top teams, and going out to the continent, looking at Erling Braut Haaland from Red Bull Salzburg, they're not going to join Tottenham because they have the potential to be top strikers, but they're not going to get that chance at Tottenham because Harry Kane is, and while he's at the club, always will be the number one option. Joshua Humphrey saying, I'm 100% Poch in, but Allegri is an option. Allegri, it does seem he might be in England very soon. You know, he's learning English. I'd say if he's going to come to England, it will more than likely be for the Man United job, because you know, having been at Juventus, he's a manager who, you know, give him money and he'll win you something. He's not going to get that at Tottenham. That's the problem. If Levy unearths another manager improving players, Levy will just sell those players, rinse and repeat. I think he has broken that pattern, that trend at this time with Pochettino. The only players that he seems keen to get out of the club are the ones that Pochettino doesn't really want anymore, namely, again, Eriksen, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Rose. But I think Levy he has realised, and he needs to accept that it gets to a stage where his income has to be from silverware, from prize money, winning competitions, rather than just selling all the good players he has. And you know, he's done a great job in terms of bringing money into the club. This unbelievable deal he has with the NFL, with getting these games played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I saw a post on Twitter saying that it was someone in, I think, Mexico or something like that. There was news of an NFL game, and it said, you know, this game, whoever playing whoever, and then obviously had the venue Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And maybe that's why there's no naming rights deal done for the stadium just yet, because these NFL games are being played. The name Tottenham Hotspur is going to be all over the world. You know, if you follow soccer, it's going to be there. But if you don't, if you're watching NFL or something like that, the name Tottenham Hotspur is going to be everywhere. So he is an absolutely genius businessman, but maybe that's not the best thing for a football club. Just one more comment here before I go. Matthew Hogg, I think the reason this lineup is how it goes is because we have Liverpool soon and we need to get our best players back. Just quickly to run through that lineup again. Paulo Gazzaniga is starting in goals. It is a 4-2-3-1 with Serge Aurier, Davinson Sanchez, Jan Vertonghen and Ben Davies playing at the back. It's a midfield duo of Tanguy Ndombele and Moussa Sissoko, with Dele Alli, Eric Lamela and Heung-min Son playing behind Harry Kane. A really strong bench with some good attacking options like Lo Celso, Eriksen and Lucas. And then for defensive solidity, Foyth and Dyer, and wings for midfield with Brandon Austin on the bench, no Michel Vorm tonight. A team that absolutely should beat Red Star Belgrade. And Nikola Pastic saying, if you don't score in the first 30 minutes, it's going to be hard for such a small team. I think we have a slight chance, but again, it can easily turn into a 5-0 game. And with Tottenham, either team can win 5-0, to be honest. It could go either way. But look, there's about 20 minutes to go to kick off. I hope you've all enjoyed not having to watch the biased BT Sport intro to that game. But look, that's all I have time for this stream today. Hopefully we can go out and get 3 points tonight. It is desperately, desperately needed. As Jay Spurs said, I forgot the winning feeling. Not going to lie, it's been a while. Hopefully we'll get that winning feeling back tonight, and we should beat Red Star Belgrade. It's a really strong team, so let's hope we can get it over the line. Thanks for watching.